Hi there, my name is Chris. This is Talking Sentoku Blues, and today I'm talking about Superman, the Warworld Saga by Phillip Kennedy Johnson. I just got done making a video about Superman the Exile and Other Stories Omnibus, in which you can find the Warworld planetoid and Mongol, the ruler of Warworld. Basically, Superman goes to Warworld to fight Mongol, the descendant of Mongol. Mongol who was versus Mongol who is. And it may be a trick, it may be a trap, and we get to see a totally different side of Superman. I mentioned in the previous video when I was talking about the Exile that I really like to see characters put into a new context. I like to see new spins on classic characters, and this one definitely is that. This does not disappoint. This is a depowered Superman, yet still a hopeful Superman. Still fighting for what's right, trying so hard to save the remains of his people. What? There are more Kryptonians out there? Well, sort of. Yeah, and the way this goes is a little bit unexpected, very fun. The world building is incredible, the characterization is pretty damn good. And yeah, I love it. So let's take a look together, shall we? Superman, now an underdog, still champion of the oppressed, full of hope rather than power, and still sacrificing himself for those in need. He shows morality more than his might, and also he shows the resilience that he first demonstrated in the Exile stories. So I like this kind of nuance of Superman, and also I think it helps that Phillip Kennedy Johnson, or PKJ as I'm going to refer to him in this video, is the sole writer of this series. It's too bad that the artists changed fairly often, because I wish that the art was a little more unified. The writing is unified, and that really helps to make this a very solid graphic novel, if you will. It really doesn't feel so much like a comic book. It really feels like an epic tale. And actually, PKJ also was responsible for The Last God. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one. If you like dark fantasy, I'm not going to go into that so much in this video because it's kind of complicated to explain, but I actually really like this comic. The Last God, Book 1 of the Fellspire Chronicles by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, or PKJ. Really, really great, amazing dark fantasy. It's really dense, but the man is a master of world building, I'll tell you that much. And his world building is fully on display in Warworld. Alright, so here you can see the cover. I'll admit this is a little cheesy, especially with Mongol's face in the background. Big burly Superman and the two children who will become very important parts of this story. And on the back you can see the revolution has begun, the gladiatorial games. You could see Omak and Steel behind Superman there. So the very first page of the very first issue opens with a monologue. We, the chainsmen of the hordes of Warworld, we who have made slaves of every race living and spilled blood enough to extinguish a star, offer our iron, our blades, and our legions to you, he who holds all chains. And of course, he who holds all chains is Mongol, ruler of Warworld. And then we get to see this freaky-ass dude named Chaytil. Chaytil has served 4 Mongols, the Mongols that were and the Mongol who is. He's the oldest living Warzoon. Warzoon is the word for the citizens of Warworld. So we come to find out that Mongol has made himself kind of the godhead of the religion of the Warzoons. He's, of course, the top of Warworld, he who holds all chains. Everyone is wearing chains all the time, and if they can win in the gladiatorial combat, or if they can kill their enemies and their foes, which is basically everyone, then they get to have the chains of their enemies. So they get larger and larger chains, they get a longer and longer chain. So at first, they're basically in shackles and they can't hardly move their arms. But then as they murder their fellows, they can, have a wider circumference with which to kill even more. And so that freaky little dude Chaytil has like the longest chain because he's murdered so many, and all of his children are dead, and everyone around him that he grew up with is gone. And he's the oldest Warzoon, and so he has the longest chain. So it's kind of this really cool idea of a slave planet where, people are happy to be slaves and they're happy to wear chains. And I really, really love the world building of this story. I love the layers of Warworld. You think it's kind of just this planet that's been cobbled together from hundreds of or thousands of years of like space junk, and all of the civilizations that they've conquered, they've kind of built into this planet, which that itself is a cool idea. But actually, there's many layers to Warworld. What did Warworld begin as? What is at the center of it? And there are certain characters who know the mythology and the history that even Mongol himself doesn't know. Speaking of world building, there's also this really cool thing where inside of Warworld, like Warworld is powered by red suns, like miniature suns, and they have these cities where like each sun is at the center of a city. And so they call it like Engine City 1. They have to go to Engine City 1 and try to, either destroy the sun, but that might destroy the planet, or they might try to do something. PKJ did an amazing job, and he's mixing like epic fantasy and horror elements, and of course the traditional superhero stories, science fiction, and even like Star Warsian like intergalactic politics comes in, and he's got this entire blend of genres all coming together. There's everything in this thing. Oh, by the way, I should probably mention that this follows Dark Knight's death metal, but you don't have to read that story because it kind of fills you in. There's a reason why Superman's powers are diminished at the beginning of the story, and although he's still super, he can still fly, he's still super strength and all of his abilities, Batman has been monitoring his statistics, and his powers are slowly decreasing or diminishing. So Batman's worried, and he suggests that Superman's son, Jon Kent, because Superman and Lois Lane are married, Clark Kent and Lois Lane are married, Jon should join the Justice League and replace Superman because he's actually showing statistically that he is more powerful than his father. Jon Kent is talking to Robin and talking about what he's going to do and how he's worried about his dad. Lois Lane is in the city of Kandor researching about Krypton, trying to write a book about it. And suddenly the Warworldians, the Warzoons, have come to Earth. Why have they come to Earth? Well, it's all a trap, Superman. It's all a trap. So basically, this rickety-rackety battleship penetrates Earth's atmosphere, pursued by hundreds of Warzoons. And long story short, they crash land, but not before Superman hears this strange prayer in a dead Kryptonian language, and he rescues 3 people who are known as Phaelosians. Phaelosians are an ancient race of Kryptonians who tried to escape Krypton in the ancient times, and they were thought to have been probably extinct. Their culture was gone. No one knows what happened to them. Of course, Lois Lane can find out the information in the Kandor library. How convenient. But yeah, so basically, Superman rescues this girl, Thao-La, and her 2 comrades, but they are unconscious. She's also unconscious, but she will wake up. And meanwhile, the wreckage of the Phaelosian ship sinks to the bottom of the ocean. The Atlanteans come and find something that they believe to be of great value. This substance that they cannot identify, but they think it is known as Source. So if you know the Source Wall and that kind of source material, Superman asks if he can take it because he wants to study it in the Fortress of Solitude, but they say no. So he asks to see the prisoners. They're speaking in the Warzoon language, and he can't really understand. They call him Superman, and they obviously just hate him and want to kill him. He tries to get them to remove the chains, but they, of course, won't because that's part of their identity and their pride of how many chains they have. Thao-La herself is freaked out when she wakes up in the Fortress of Solitude and she does not have chains. So she ends up killing Kellex, the medical bot, and Lois Lane and Supergirl appear to try to help her. She talks about how Superman was a legend in these ancient stories and how they always hoped that he would come as this savior for the Phaelosians on Warworld, but he never did. And then she also manifests this new power that she herself doesn't even understand why or how she can have this eye blast, kind of like Superman's heat vision, kind of like Cyclops from X-Men. And Marek, who's studying the source material, has been there a little too long. He's one of the Atlanteans charged with analyzing the material. And Volko asks, "How long have you been in this room?" And then he says, "Can you hear it? He dreams of us now. We are but whispers within his dreams," and he morphs into this like Akira, like freaky ass being. Skipping ahead a little bit, Steve Trevor arrives and demands that the Atlanteans give up the fragment that they found. Those spacecraft crashed in U.S. waters. They're the property of the U.S. government. The words U.S. waters may mean something to others, but not to an Atlantean. Go home. So because the Atlanteans will not give up the fragment, and the US government also will not back down demanding the fragment, and Superman is a terrible diplomat who can't seem to compromise with these people, so basically the Atlanteans and the US Navy have a standoff. And this is actually pretty cool. Superman uses his frost breath to create a giant barrier between the US naval ships and the Atlanteans, and then he just basically goes in and takes the fragment for himself. Meanwhile, Thao-La is being attacked by this crazy Warzoon who suddenly appeared in the Fortress of Solitude. Lois Lane has her special high-tech rifle, and she's trying to fend him off. And it's revealed that Thao-La was basically sent to Earth to look like she was escaping from Warworld, but actually Mongol, this is all part of his plan. And Superman kind of suspects that this may be a trap, but he doesn't care. And he's like, we gotta go back to Warworld, we gotta free all the Phaelosians, we gotta free your people. And this is also funny. Superman getting some advice from Batman. Batman's just on top of this guy's car. I don't need you to tell me things. It's a trap. Your refugees are likely part of it, but let's say they're not. If this new Mongol can subjugate Kryptonians, that would suggest they don't have your abilities. Even Batman knows it's a trap. Come on, Soups, listen to him. Go back to Warworld with me, Thao-La. Together, we'll free every slave on that planet. I swear it. How? How can I trust you? Trust yourself. Who do you choose to put your faith in? And then she breaks her chains. Cue the dramatic music here. Oh, the dramatic music is all copyrighted. So Superman calls up the Justice League, but the Justice League are busy with the war that has been escalating between the Atlanteans and the US government. And so they're like, you gotta wait, man. We'll help you, but you gotta wait. And Superman's like, I can't wait. I gotta go. And so he flies with Lois one last time, and yep. Then he calls up the Authority, which I was not so familiar with the Authority. I'm not a huge comics person, so I don't know all the details, but basically there's this group called the Authority. Yeah, he teams up with them, and there's this kind of funny little moment here. This feels like the time for a catchphrase. Does anybody have a fun catchphrase? What, like second star to the right, and all until some geezer kills us all? I've got one. Up, up, and they just disappear. So in like a true Green Lantern style, Enchantress builds this kind of a little green spaceship, and they all travel across the galaxy. Really like the way Warworld looks in this part. Looks really cool. So they arrive and they see Superman's sign. His sigil is like burned into the planet. And also there's a dead guy with the Kryptonian language, maybe warning, hanging around his chest. Of course, Superman flies out to take care of him. Let the games begin. So here is the entire path that Superman and the Authority should travel, lined with the dead bodies of all the Phaelosians, and all of them have carved into their bodies Superman's sigil, his S, follow the dead. Superman sheds a tear. And you know what's going to happen next. They meet Chaytil. Only Chaytil yet lives. And you find out that Mongol is not the only badass. He's also got Teacher, he's got Mother, Orphan, Darling, and the Unmade, who kind of reminded me of the Batman Who Laughs, honestly. Kind of similar design. Those are Mongol's champions. The champions have been seriously upgraded since the Exile years. In the Exile, there was just that one guy. Drago was the undefeated champion in Mongol's original Warworld. Mongol Who Was, and now Mongol Who Is has a bunch of freaky new champions. Also the baby in the jar called Orphan. It's a pretty interesting character, kind of freaky, and unexpectedly so, actually. It has a lot of details there. At last, the old man who conquered Mongol Who Was. Now you face Mongol Who Is. So there's a whole lot of fighting and a whole lot of brawling, and some of the Authority get severely injured. They get thrown in chains. Superman himself gets thrown in the dungeon. And down in the dungeon, he will meet the Phaelosians, the last of them. and he will become their champion, and he will be the leader of the resistance, and he will basically help them rise up to try to take back Warworld. In the same way that I enjoy like Darkseid and Apocalypse and seeing like the Armageddon and some of those, the inner workings of the planet, I also enjoy this Lunar Rotation 17, where you've got this guy. He's a Bloodpriest, and he says, "What filthy lack iron stray knows the name of a Bloodpriest?" Thargil of Bog. His name is Thargil of Bog. And anyway, so you can see here Midnighter tries to free one of the Warzoons, and she's like, "Who are you to break my iron? I blinded a Leonori for one of these. Taking iron's worth more than your life here, stupid stray." So she's collecting her chains. What are they up against here? It's kind of a weird story partway through where Ma Kent was battling cancer, I guess. I'm not sure about if that's really part of the lore or it's just in this. And then this mean kid like hit her with a soccer ball and knocked her wig off. Intercut with some of the Warzoon women and how they're trying to survive. There's this boy who's showing kindness and his mom's trying to harden him up. And one of my minor gripes about this story, and it's really just me being basic, is during this sequence with the Warzoon women, I thought to myself, this comic is full of like shirtless dudes, and in some cases pantsless dudes with giant rippling muscles. And there's a kind of a gender disparity because there's no real female equivalent of that. I guess the Warzoon women are kind of sort of scantily clad, but there's no there's no Princess Leia in a gold bikini. There's not even a brass bikini. There's nothing besides these kind of raggedy Warzoon women. One of Mongol's sons is killed in the breeding grounds, and I was like, ooh, the breeding grounds. It kind of sounded like Ephialtes if you remember the movie 300, when Ephialtes goes to Xerxes' like harem, and he gets tempted by all the women, and I thought, like, there might be something like this in here. This is the kind of story where you want that kind of thing. I know I was kind of making fun of when Big Barda and Superman made the sex tape back in the John Byrne days. In that kind of a story, it's not really appropriate. But in this kind of story, I actually thought there might be some, like, sexy Warzoon women or some warrior women that could be kind of awesome and sexy at the same time, but it's just a bunch of dudes. It's a bunch of rippling, muscly dudes. And, I was kind of disappointed. I know it's not the 90s anymore. I know it's not even the early 2000s anymore. But, I mean, I don't know. The gender disparity just kind of got me a little bit, I guess. I like titties. What can I say? So there's this part where Krillix, I think his name is Krillix, this kind of wandering old man who is down in the dungeons. He actually knows the secrets of Warworld, and he's going to teach Superman. And he talks about there's this old god, this mighty Olgren, who was this ancient god, and he was so powerful that when they killed him, they basically split him into like 7 pieces and scattered the pieces everywhere. And he didn't really die because he was a god, but basically if the pieces are reunited again, he's going to come back. His spirit's going to be revived and whatnot. And so he has this really cool monologue where he's explaining that to Superman, and I love this part. He says, "Warworld is not a mere battle station, Superman, nor is it just a tomb. It is a trial to be faced, a puzzle box to be solved and opened. It is the device the gods of the first world built to protect the fire of Olgren, awaiting one who is worthy of it." And I love all of those kind of details. I just really love how, PKJ just knocking it out of the park with that kind of world building, unique creatures and monsters, and so many layers to Warworld, so many, even Mongol's champions like Mother and Teacher and Orphan, they all get little backstories. It's actually a shame that the Authority didn't get more backstories, because one of the criticisms that I have of this, besides the lack of tits and ass, is I really wish that the Authority had been a little more fleshed out. And I don't mean fleshed out, I just mean, I wish they had been given backstories, because I wasn't really familiar with the Authority, and when something happens to them, either they're taken prisoner or they are seemingly killed or something like that, I didn't really feel anything. And there's these kind of emotional scenes where you're really supposed to care about these characters, and I thought it just goes by so fast. And yet a lot of the gladiatorial scenes are kind of repetitious. So on the one hand, I kind of wish this had gone on a little longer, and it was like a full omnibus length story of just exploring Warworld and the things that the Authority could have more like character beats and little moments. But then at the same time, I'm also kind of glad that it was this short, because it seemed like some of the parts were dragged out a little bit. and unnecessarily like a lot of just violence for the sake of violence. Even though the themes are great and the overall story is amazing. Superman having to rise despite the fact that he's depowered, and how does he lead a revolution when he is constantly getting weaker and he barely has any power left? He's essentially just a man at this point. So that kind of stuff was really interesting, but I guess just with all the subplots, especially with the Authority, there were just so many characters. And I was really glad that PKJ spent some time with the Champions and with like the history of like Mongol and who Mongol was. But yeah, he does his best to try to, flesh out as much as he can of the main characters. But I guess that would be my one criticism. It's just kind of, it's overstuffed with a lot of things, and the ending comes pretty quick. Even though before that it really kind of drags out. And so I wanted like the gladiatorial stuff to be a little bit condensed, and I wanted the ending to be a little bit more of a catharsis and explored a little deeper, so that I could really care about the characters and I could really feel like so satisfied, I guess. All right, I'm gonna end it right here, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll check out this comic if you haven't read it, and if you have read it, please leave me a comment and tell me what you thought of it. All right, see you next time.